folks, today I want to talk about this particular concept, which is called win-win-win, and why that's so important today in particular, and how that impacts human motivation, drive, and energy. And if you've already probably heard me say this before, energy is your most important and vital resource. I can't stress this enough. The more energy you have, the more effective you're going to be in life, the better decisions you're going to make, and the better quality of life you're going to have, because you're going to be able to experience it fully. So when you have more energy, you have more drive, and you have greater engagement in life. And the opposite is also true. When you have low energy, you have less drive, and you're less engaged in life. Now, this is important because win-win-win means that, let's just take a look at it from a business perspective. If your client is winning and you are winning and the greater community is winning or the environment is winning, whatever it might be, that's a win-win-win. And you get extremely motivated and driven and get more energy out of that when it's a win-win-win. The challenge, though, is that if one of those wins is not there, then your brain isn't as motivated. It doesn't have as much energy. This is important because the vast majority of our processing happens at the unconscious level. So neuroscientists believe the estimate is roughly about 95%. Now, it's never been proven to be exactly 95%, but that's the estimate, where cognitive neuroscientists believe that 95% of our processing happens at the unconscious level. So if 95% of our thinking is happening at the unconscious level or processing, then what is actually impacting that? One of the things that impacts that is whether someone is winning, whether someone is benefiting or not, and whether both parties are benefiting, or whether both parties plus a greater good is benefiting. So just think about it for yourself. Like, how motivated are you if your client wins but you don't win? You might feel, okay, you know what, I feel good for my client, but inside your brain knows at the unconscious level that you're not winning. So it's not of benefit to you. And it doesn't get as driven or motivated as it would if your client won and you won as well. Now, if your client won and you won, plus you guys did something phenomenal for the environment or for the community or whatever it might be, that's when you get really, really engaged and you have a higher level of energy. Right, you have a higher level of cognitive energy, you'll have a higher level of emotional energy, you'll have a higher level of physical energy, and you'll also have a higher level of life energy. So this concept of win-win-win is extremely important when it comes to performance, but also quality of life and engagement in life. Because if we go around life winning all the time, but the other party is not winning, eventually what ends up happening is, you know what, something just doesn't feel right. Right? It just doesn't feel right when that happens. And those people around you also notice that you're one of those individuals that likes to win all the time, but you don't care if the other party wins. And then you get a reputation, and then people don't want to do business with you, or they don't want to get into a relationship with you, or they don't want to interact with you. That is a challenge there. So every single thing that we do, as much as we can, right? We are not perfect. We should be thinking about what is the win-win-win in this situation. I'm bringing this up for a very specific reason. Many of you listeners, actually the vast majority of you, are actually in the US, right? So you are my neighbors, my colleagues, my friends from the US. And most of you know, if you don't know, I'm from Canada, I'm a Canadian. And many of you are also from Canada, and my neighbors and my fellow Canadians. Now, what is happening in this business realm, and I'm going to speak about it from a business perspective and an economic perspective, not from a political perspective, okay? So I have business in the U.S., very fond of the U.S., to go down there quite a bit. Have also considered living down there at times, but I do love Canada. My heart is in Canada here. But this whole conversation around trade wars and tariffs is a real challenging conversation. So let me tackle the economics part of it first, okay? And then we'll get into what it's actually doing to people. The economics, for whatever reason, there's always legitimate reasons to do something because it will benefit some organization or entity in some way, shape, or form. But here's how I see it from an economic perspective. Is the only way to pay for tax cuts for the ultra wealthy, and we're talking about ultra wealthy, we're not talking about the normal wealthy, we're talking about ultra wealthy, which has already been put into place in the US, is to get some kind of other revenue. And that other revenue comes from sources such as tariffs. And tariffs are paid by the average consumer. They are not paid by the ultra wealthy because they have ways to get around that. Okay, so this is the interesting part here, is that whether it's Canadians or the Americans, the average Canadian, the consumer, the everyday person, right? The mom, the dad, the parent that is taking care of their kids is going to be paying more for their goods. And what is happening, if this is the agenda, which I'm not fully certain it is, but I have my reasons to believe so, is to give tax cuts to the ultra wealthy, right? That's what we are seeing in terms of what is potentially playing out here. So that's the economic side. Tariffs don't do well unless there's a legitimate reason for it to protect a legitimate industry. Okay. So let's just put that part aside. Now let's take a look at it from a human perspective. So I am on phone calls, Zoom calls, and virtual sessions all the time with CEOs, business leaders, both in Canada and the US and overseas. I can't tell you how much I've seen people change within the last 3 weeks. It's been incredible in terms of their level of motivation and drive, and not for the better. Okay, I'm talking about a complete collapse in people's drive, motivation, and energy. And why is that? It comes back to this concept of win-win-win. Okay, people are trying to figure out where the win-win is. First of all, let's forget about the win-win-win, the third win. Let's talk about the win-win. People are still trying to figure out where the win-win is. Okay, and it's very tough to figure that out from this perspective at this current point in time when it comes to a trade war, a tariff war. So people are getting extremely demotivated. So you might, and it's causing a lot of people angst. So it's causing a lot of business leaders angst, but it's also causing a lot, it's a trickle-down effect as well, because there's a lot of people, let's just say at the front line or lines, wondering, are they going to lose their jobs? Okay, so if an industry is hit with tariffs, there's a big chance that industry is going to lose jobs. We've seen that. This isn't brain science here. This is basic economics that has been proven through research, for example, and past. All we need to do is take a look at the past to see what will happen in the future when it comes to these types of policies. Now, what ends up happening, though, is if people are fearing for their jobs, they are going to be less motivated. So this is something that we need to pay attention to as business leaders. We are already seeing that impact organizations at a significant and massive amount. So this is going to impact their performance, because when people don't have the same level of energy, they don't perform as well. So that's fundamentally the principle here. And all it has to be, remember, is that this is all perception. It's all perception at this point. And people's perception is that trade wars and tariff wars don't lead to a win-win-win. And so now people's motivation is down, people's drive is down. This is starting from the top all the way down to the bottom, right? All the way down to the front line here. People are becoming more demotivated, and that is going to impact people's performance. It's also going to impact their quality of life and their engagement in life as well. And then what ends up happening is that this impacts other people. So you have two, let's just say a husband and wife in a home. The husband is fearing for his job, right? The wife isn't, because she's in a completely different industry, but that impacts their relationship, because a husband is coming home with less energy. And in a short term, that's fine, but long term, that doesn't work out very well unless the husband learns how to bring his energy up or find energy from other sources. So this is having a trickle effect in society. This is having a triple effect in economics, in the business world. But I want to share this with you here in a timely fashion, because we need to get back into a win-win-win. What does that look like specifically for Canada and the US? Because it can be a win-win-win. From what I'm seeing right now, from the perspective that I see things, it is a win for one party. And that one party isn't the average Canadian or the average American. So I ask you, as listeners here, so not only from an economic perspective, think of ways that we can bring this conversation to light, but also to be aware of the personal impact that it's going to have on people and is already having on people on both sides of the border. And that's impacting your workforce. So what do we do as leaders, right, to create win-win-wins for our team members, even though there's a lot of uncertainty in North America in particular here right now? So hopefully you can take that back and start applying this principle of win-win-win in almost every aspect of your life. It's going to change it, I guarantee. When you start to think about that from a win-win-win, things start to happen and things start to accelerate for the better. So I wish you the very best and take care.